My name is Joy Wilkins. I serve as the facilitator for MAX, and it's my honor to welcome you to today's session. We are joined by Beau Grover, who's the president of Swiftemp. Beau, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad that you are able to carve time out of your schedule for us, and we just really look forward to what you're going to share with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joy. Let me share my screen and pull up my presentation here. Okay, so Joy, thank you for inviting me and giving us this opportunity to share with you. Swiftemp is a new endeavor we launched in 2022, and we're approaching the manufacturing sector and providing skilled and semi-skilled talent to the manufacturing sector. And our value proposition is that we're not a staffing company that works in manufacturing, but we are a manufacturing company that actually works in staffing. And I'll put a little more color behind that. So the agenda, briefly tell you who we are and what we do. I want to talk about four key themes that we're hearing and working with our customers on, and that is the generational transition that we've all talked about several times. The need for employer flexibility, some opportunities for creative pay and incentives, and then lastly, the answer is culture. And I wear a little bracelet on my arm that says that to remind me of where we are. So for 23-ish years, I've been working as a business coach. I worked through several organizations as an internal coach, traveling around to different manufacturing plants, helping them with leadership development and Lean Six Sigma implementation. And in 2015, went through, I guess, a rebirth of myself where I decided that I wanted to strike out on my own and decide to start a company called the Effective Syndicate. And our mission is very straightforward. We work with manufacturing companies to help them simply be more effective. During that time, I was constantly being asked, hey, Beau, do you know an engineer? Do you know a plant manager? Do you know a quality leader? Do you know? And while I did have a decent network, it was hard to effectively help connect those people. And so in 2022, we launched Swiftemp, and we also launched a direct placement recruiting model. And so our approach is to help our clients run better through processes and through people. So in some cases, that's a direct placement. In some cases, that's staff augmentation. In some cases, that is Lean Six Sigma transformation. And in the best cases, it's all three. So in year one of Swiftemp, we have secured over 20 customers, and we currently have approximately 40 people billing, and we're growing about 10% per month. This year was really about establishing our processes and working out the bugs and the kinks of the software and the payroll and all of those insurance kind of administrative things. And because we're a manufacturing company, we help our clients in many ways, and we don't just send warm bodies over, which is what my experience was years ago when I was a plant manager. It was like, hey, this guy filled out an application, he might show up for work, so good luck. We treat our temporary staffing just like we treat our direct placement. So we learn what does the customer need, what skills, what experience, what education. Then we comb through our database and other databases to find people that actually meet the criteria. So we're very much trying to find the right person, not just a person. Generational transition. I know that this topic has been talked about ad nauseum, but we call it the brain drain, and it is very, very real, and it is very, very alive and painful. As we've all experienced, there's a shift from the retiring baby boomers to younger generations, which are the millennials, Gen Z in the workforce. The current estimations, and I struggled to get a real number, but I believe there's around 6,000 to 7,000 open manufacturing jobs in the state of Georgia. And it is also estimated in the next 5 to 10 years, somewhere between 40 and 100,000 older workers, baby boomers, as we call them, are going to be retiring. So we're already at a deficit, and looking forward, it appears that that deficit is more likely to grow than shrink. I give the state government incredible props. They continue to find and land and attract growing companies, growing manufacturing plants. Hyundai's opening up a giant plant down in Savannah. There's all kinds of manufacturing jobs coming in. What I don't know that we've done very well collectively is prepared a workforce that, number one, wants those types of jobs, and number two, is capable of growing into them or even being interested in them. So we have our work cut out for us. The manufacturing sector, as all sectors do, but a manufacturing sector, I think, feels a potential painful situation coming up. We're going to have to get smart and get creative and work really hard. This transition, there's an impact on skill set and experience, and the problem is twofold. Number one, the older generations have a different expectation of workforce values. And by that, I mean, my generation grew up thinking, hey, you get a great job and you stay with the company, and this is the baby boomer generation as well. You stay with it and you commit to the company, and you retire from the company. The younger generations are much more mobile. They don't see it that way. They want to go and experience new things. They want to go and try to learn new things, and they're very impatient. So recognizing just the value set that these younger folks are bringing in, and again, there's no judgment. It's not this way's good and that way's bad. It's just a different mentality. So a lot of this presentation is going to be about how do we bridge that. The other part of that problem is there's a great deal of internal knowledge. It's often based on people's with decades of experience, but it is often inadequately documented. So we don't have the documentation of what they know. We don't have a good way of training new people to transfer that knowledge over. So as this transition is happening, that's why we call it the brain drain. All of that knowledge that isn't documented is leaving when someone retires. And now we're left to resolve problems that we've solved over the last, several decades in some cases. So to do that, we're work with our clients on adapting the recruitment strategies. How do they find and attract younger talent? In some cases, that may be changing the way they write their ads. In some cases, that may be changing where they place their ads. In some cases, that may be spending more time with the potential candidate, figuring out what do they want out of their careers, what's important to them, what do they value, and rather than trying to convince them to be more like the older generations, how do we adapt the organization to be more accommodating to what they value? And I'm gonna walk a tightrope on that conversation, so more to come. And then lastly, the critical importance of transferring knowledge to the younger generation. So we have people that have been working in companies for a long, long time. They've accumulated a wealth of knowledge. And how do we intentionally and deliberately pull that knowledge out from them in a way that is transferable and trainable to a younger workforce? And this is one of those cases where our organizations overlap. So the experience that we've had with the Effective Syndicate with training and development and process improvement stuff, we bring that to the Swiftemp clients to say, look, let's be deliberate about how do we collect this information as we're going through this transition. So there's a different level of support beyond just providing them additional workers. Point number two, employer flexibility. We like to say meet people where they are, and there's a caveat to that within reason. I may have a hot take here coming up in a minute. We'll see. Number one, employer flexibility, recognizing this dynamic change that is happening. We need to meet people where they are within reason. And I'm not suggesting that most companies haven't recognized that. I am suggesting that many of them haven't responded well. So the three steps that we talk about very, very often, almost consistently, is number one, improving the leadership of the organization. Number two, enhancing the culture. And I don't mean sleeping pods and ice cream socials. I mean, how do we treat each other? How do we communicate? How do we focus on the people skills? It's a pet peeve of mine. People use soft skills, but my experience is they're anything but soft. They're really darn hard. And then number three, removing the real frustrations and roadblocks. So people get into this mindset of, hey, everybody's upset, let's have a pizza party. That's not the problem. The pizza party is almost probably insulting because they're working in poor conditions, or they don't have a good process to follow, or their boss is a jerk, or they don't have the right tools and equipment. Having a pizza party is not helping any of that. So improving the way the employee experiences the actual work that's being done is what we mean when we say removing frustrations and roadblocks. Point number two, there are benefits to employers and employees, and this may be a little bit of a hot take. The idea that one size fits all and we must administer these policies and procedures perfectly consistently across all things. We believe that's a misnomer, and we believe that leads to unnecessary tension and stress. Not all employees are created equal, and not all employers are created equal. So having some flexibility with that, or at least being willing to hear the things that the employees may or may not like about the way the current operation is running. And then number three, we suggest organizations of at least 25 people or more have some sort of workplace culture steering committee. This is not a kumbaya, let's sit around and eat cookies and talk about how great everything is, but this is an intentional group. In the manufacturing space, we try to make it as cross-functional as possible. So there may be people from the warehouse, there may be people from the manufacturing floor, and people from the office, all deliberately talking about, hey, how do we make this a better place to work? What are the frustrations that our people are feeling? What's making it hard for us to find or retain talent to mitigate that turnover that many companies are experiencing? Number three, creative pay and incentives. If we help our employees get what they want, they are much more likely to commit to our organization. It can't be that one-sided idea that, hey, we want our employees to commit to us, but the employer is not also committing back to the employee. So how do we help them figure out what they want, what would be beneficial for them, and then help them get it? Some of the ideas here, beyond the traditional compensation of salary or pay rate, it might be performance bonuses, it might be profit sharing, it might be some flexible benefits. We've seen companies do some creative things with time off, flexible schedules, buying back unused vacation time. And it really is, the way we say it is, it's about making the deposits to the employee, right? So we're very good about asking our employees to stay late and work harder and come in on the weekend when things get behind, but we're not always willing to meet them again part way if they need something from us. They need a little flexibility. They've got a situation that they're dealing with. So it's almost like on one side, we want them to be very, very flexible, but we're very, very rigid. And we think that causes quite a bit of unnecessary frustration. Point number two, tailoring incentives. Again, what does the younger workforce value? Life work balance, career development opportunities, wellness programs, promotions, that sort of thing. And again, not all jobs are created equal, and they certainly don't have all of the same requirements. So how do we tailor what we're offering to our employees to better suit what they're looking for out of their jobs? I believe it is human nature to say, hey, somebody's trying to work with me, and that makes me want to try to work with them. So it starts developing that commitment on a two-way street, rather than what I think a lot of companies do traditionally, which is, again, you commit to us, but we're not so committed to you. Point number three, feedback and room to grow. We hear a lot of business leaders, more seasoned business leaders say, hey, this younger generation, they're so entitled, and they always expect something for nothing. We tend to push back on that a little bit. I don't know that the younger generation is entitled so much as I think that they're very, very impatient. They grew up on video games where, I've never played the game. I plug it into my computer, my gaming center. I play the game for 3 hours and suddenly I'm the ruler of the galaxy, or I'm the Star Lord. And so this pattern of, hey, I just do a little bit of work and I'm get this giant reward. Additionally, they are bombarded, whether it's TikTok or Facebook Reels or YouTube, with videos that are 30 seconds to 3 minutes long. So in their mind, this information is supposed to happen very, very fast. The dopamine hit that they get from that social media platform is very, very fast. And so they're patterned on a very, very short window, where historically, the apprenticeship way of building a career was, well, if you do this job for 14 years, you might be promoted to assistant manager to the assistant manager. And so we have to recognize that that is a mind shift, not something that we can convince them otherwise, but we need to figure out how to meet them part way. What we do with our clients in that case is we help them find shorter and quicker milestones. Not all milestones are pay increases. We had a client that had some very cool jackets, and each time someone reached a new level, or they acquired a new skill, or they changed departments, they would get a patch. And so it's almost like this badge of honor that I'm going to wear this jacket or this shirt that indicates, hey, I've accomplished a lot. I think the pride in work is fostered through that, and it gives people something to strive for, without tying the company to, hey, I've got to give another 50 cents an hour. I got to give another $1 an hour. I got to give another, whatever. And then thirdly, make your culture one of mutual benefit for the employee and the employer. It doesn't need to be this one-sided street where, again, we want them to commit to us, but we're not so committed to them. Which leads us to our platform, basically. And that is, we believe every challenge that a manufacturing company faces is based on culture. Our perspective of culture is that it is all encompassing. It's not, it's not just, hey, we've got a nice workplace, we got a nice cafeteria, we do ice cream socials. It is more about, how do the processes work? Do the people have the tools, equipment, and resources? So we go through a pretty thorough assessment with our customers and help them see that their culture is probably causing some of the pain that they're feeling, specifically to people. If you fix your culture, your people problems will go away almost 100% of the time. The way we do that is spending time on the front end, the onboarding process. We recommend employers spend time refining their onboarding process so that new employees can really plug in. If you think about a new employee, they're worried about showing up on time. They're worried about learning their new job. They're worried about impressing their new bosses. They're worried about how do they fit in with their coworkers. And so if all of that is already hard, right, it becomes kind of this barrier. I don't feel like I belong here. I don't feel like I'm connected to this organization. And so how we bring people in and plug them in culturally, in addition to having an ongoing supportive kind of culture, will help them more quickly learn their job task and become a high contributor faster. Number two, skill path definition. Again, this ties back to the gaming mentality of rapid succession, rapid improvements. We work with many, many companies on level 1, level 2, and level 3 kind of skill sets. So when you're sitting down with a potential new employee and you say, hey, Beau, you're going to join here, but here's the career paths that could lead from here. If you like working here and you do a good job for us, we want you to grow within our organization. So you're starting off even before the employee starts with an opportunity to understand that this, we want to invest in you, but that means you got to invest in us as well. Number three, following the skill path definition, investing in training and development. Employees are more likely to stay where they feel like they're growing. That's the reason so many old folks like us still wear our college sweatshirts, not just for college football, but I grew at college at kind of the platform that launched my career in my life. And so I feel very committed because I know that college helped me become who I am. And the same is true of the workforce. If we can get them and show them how we're investing in them and helping them become better workers, but also better human beings, again, they're more likely to commit to it. And the ironic part for us is companies spend a lot of money with turnover. So they don't invest on the front end. They don't develop the career path. They don't have a good training and development program. People don't plug in. They get frustrated and leave. Then we got to spend all this money. We got to post the job. We got to find the person. We got to interview the person. We got to do the background and drug test and all of those things. If we reallocate those funds to saying, all right, how do we help people plug in better? How does our training work? How does our onboarding work? We believe that's a better investment and will usually positively impact turnover problems, which are pretty rampant these days. Number 4, effective leadership in manufacturing. And I assume this is true in other industry sectors. We tend to promote the people that were the best workers. So, hey, Beau's a really good assembler. He would probably be a good assembly team lead. I may be an awful team lead, but because I was a good assembler and I had a good work ethic, now I've got the responsibility of now leading a group of people, and I haven't been developed on how to lead people effectively. So improving and investing in these people who are asking to lead other people is generally a huge opportunity. And then finally, I touched on this earlier, the work environment. So investing in the working conditions, safety. Do you have the appropriate tools and resources? Do you know what it means to be successful? Do you understand what we're trying to do? In improving the actual work environment, not pizza parties and cry rooms. We laugh a lot because some of our clients will say, man, everybody's ticked off. Let's order some pizzas. And it's like, well, if you're up to your neck in alligators and the company provides you pizza's great. And I love pizza, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm up to my neck in alligators. So I stop and have the pizza and I go back to the, fighting off the alligators in my workplace. It's just completely missing the point. So rather than saying, hey, let's have a pizza party or ice cream social, or hey, go take a nap, it's let's fix what's wrong. What's wrong with our processes? What's wrong with our training? What's wrong with our teamwork? So that people can, again, not feel those unnecessary frustrations with their job. We say it often, work doesn't have to suck. It's just work. And some of these things will help improve that mentality, both on the employee side and the employer side, if they recognize the joint responsibility of what's trying to be accomplished. So we need community help, and I applaud you guys, all of the workforce development work that this group of people are doing. You guys, I want to sincerely thank you, but we need to stop telling kids that every kid should go to college. Somehow working with your hands is bad and it means they're less than. The only way to have a good career is if you go to a 4-year college and you get a degree. And we've all heard the stories of kids coming out of college, $100,000 in debt with a degree in a dwindling industry, and they're frustrated by it. And it's like, well, we're self-fulfilling. We've been telling kids that the only way to have a good career is to go to college for years and maybe even decades. And now we're reaping that because kids think, well, if I don't go to college, I'm somehow less than. I'm not as good as the kids who are going to college. And not only is it wrong, it's just harmful. We've met some fantastic leaders of all ages who never went to college, but they embrace themselves. Hey, I'm good with my hands. I like solving problems. And we need to teach them that manufacturing can be cool. I mean, a lot of companies are using robots. A lot of companies are doing automation. There's programming, there's coding that needs to happen. There's so many ways to gamify work. But again, they don't see it because the overarching message is you must go to college if you want to be successful, and it's just harmful. We need young people willing to work, and too many of these young kids wouldn't know work if it was literally biting them on the nose. So again, I applaud you guys, and hopefully we can help reiterate that message to help kids decide to get into some of the blue collar or at least gray collar work. I think that's going to be the biggest opportunity for good, successful, paying jobs in the coming future. AI is an absolute threat for a lot of the more creative skills. And I don't know that we've gotten that message out to our young folks yet. So that is it for my little spiel, my little talk. What questions and answers do we have?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for that. That was really just an amazing discussion with respect to just what you're seeing and the way that your company approaches finding talent differently and growing talent differently and how you counsel your clients. Some of my takeaways from what you shared are, it's kind of, and I hear leadership experts talk about this as well, but you're kind of echoing it, which is like just invest in your people, right? Show them that you care, and and they will tend to care more about the work at hand and the company's business. And so, and then the other, this whole notion of you're right, we tend to hear employers and others talk about the younger generation perhaps feeling a sense of entitlement, or wanting to see success more quickly in terms of promotions and those kinds of things than maybe the older generation is used to. But what we have to remember is that they have grown up in a different environment with respect to being gamers and so forth, and they are looking for shorter, quicker milestones. And so how do we work with that, right? How do we meet them where they are? So I thought that was really powerful. And then overall, of course, this whole notion on workplace culture, right? We spend so many hours of our day doing work, and like you said, it doesn't pass the stuff, right? It really doesn't. So how do we create an environment where people they want to go to work every day and they find enjoyment out of it? So all that was really powerful. So I do have a couple questions to get started, and I would invite those who are with us to please also feel free to put your questions in the chat as well. But let's go ahead and start with, you mentioned, let's start with just the fact that, the metrics that you shared. Your company is relatively young, right? And you already have over 20 customers, 40 workers on site, growing at 10% a year. That's incredible. And let's not forget that you started in the middle of a pandemic, right? So just lest we all forget that. So what have been your keys to success? Like what would you attribute your success to? Because that's pretty, quite frankly, it's pretty phenomenal given the short time we're talking about, and again, the challenges that we've seen in our society in the last couple of years. So what do you see as your keys to success right now?
Absolutely. First and foremost, Joy, I'm very, very blessed. I have been able to find and build an incredible, awesome, amazing team of folks who, again, we've explained and we've worked together on what our culture is, and then we went and found out or found people who want to be a part of that. So absolutely, my number one, two, three reasons for success would be the team, right? My teammates who are out there doing this work. And I think number two is probably the collaborative nature. So again, we're manufacturing folks. So I've been where the plant manager is. I've been where the director of manufacturing is. I've been where the business owner is. And knowing what happens in manufacturing and what those calls at midnight feel like and what those angry customers feel like. So I think when we approach them from the position of, hey, I understand what you're going through and I can help you do it because, again, I've been there. So we've tailored our approach to match what they're living with on a day-to-day basis is probably point number four. One, two, three being an awesome team of great people. Mm-hmm. Point number four would be the way we can relate to our customers.
Right. So you're kind of walking the walk, so to speak. And you did mention that you're in the manufacturing industry. Can you tell us a little bit about just a little background about what kind of manufacturing you're involved in?
Yes.
Your company.
Absolutely. So we have three key areas. I mean, again, I believe our approach is universal, but we have very, very deep knowledge in three primary manufacturing spaces. Number one is metal fabrication. Anybody that's manipulating metal, forming, painting, metal fabrication. Number two is equipment manufacturing. So somebody that's building an OEM type piece of equipment, capital equipment. And then number three is packaging. So my background overlaps all three of those extensively. My team has been focused in those spaces also almost extensively. So that's our primary target. Again, we believe our model is pretty universal, and I don't know that there's a lot of difference between manufacturing widgets versus manufacturing something else. But that's the three that we focus on most.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to go to chat for a moment. Looks like we have a comment from Shelley. I think she's commenting about your comment about soft skills or not. You mentioned earlier that's actually, it's hard, right? It's hard to help people develop soft skills. And she's saying she loves that. Her adult students are usually also, saying that the class that she teaches kind of hurts their brain. She's trying to help them develop soft skills. And then Dina is talking about how says I did a career change workshop recently. One of the target demographics were post-retirement individuals. And so there's a question here. How are you looking at this demographic of individuals for your future needs? Do you see them fitting anywhere in the industry? And so this is, we of course been talking about the younger generation, and we'll get back to that. But she has a question about these, also the opportunity for engaging the post-retirement individuals, perhaps folks who are looking for an encore career opportunity. So would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I don't know that we've deliberately targeted that. I think there's a huge opportunity for those folks actually in more of a mentorship role. I don't know how many of those more seasoned people have looked into that, but again, if they're cut of the right cloth, then how do they, is there an opportunity for them to plug in? I don't know that many of those folks want to do manual labor like manufacturing, but serving as kind of a coach or a sounding board, or plugging in, maybe it's a part-time basis to help smooth over this transition. We haven't targeted them specifically, but I do think there's a tremendous opportunity because, again, I don't think our education system teaches people skills very well. I don't think our education system currently teaches communication and teamwork and some of the things that I take for granted, but I have the curse of knowledge. I've been studying workplace culture for 20 plus years. So I think there's a bridge opportunity for some of those folks to plug into organizations and help them with that generational transition. Absolutely.
That's a really interesting concept. So, we have this, we see a skills gap in some of our the younger generations, and yet you look at the older generations, and perhaps they, not obviously all across the board, but the older generation may bring some of those soft skills to the table that they could, use to coach someone with, like you said, communication and people skills and so forth. And so perhaps there's an opportunity there to bring them on board as mentors, and that might make more sense with respect to where they are in their careers as well. We have a question from Shelley. Will you please expand on this point? How do we adapt recruitment strategies for our incoming work generation while not trying to convince them to be the former generation? So how do we adapt recruitment strategies for the incoming work generation while not trying to convince them to be the former generation? It's a question.
Yeah, I think part of that is probably the way we used to write job descriptions. I have a longtime client that I've worked with, and every time they write a job description, they try to write down every possible thing that this person might have to do. And it ends up being a 3-page document, with a bullet pointed list of every possible scenario. And I don't think that, number one, I don't think many people are going to read those job descriptions, but how do you shorten those up and talk about what's the purpose of the company, right? The younger generation have been instilled with, hey, you got to have a higher purpose. You got to serve something. You got to save the planet and save the whales and save everything. And sometimes that's a little bit hard to tie. How does building this widget help save anything? But recognizing where they're coming from and what they've been taught and, for lack of a better term, programmed to think, requires us to be a little more creative and not make it so much about the tasks that they're going to do, but what's the mission that the organization is trying to fulfill? Why should they care about coming to work for Beau's manufacturing company, beyond here's the tasks that you're going to do when you join us?
Thank you. So trying to get them to understand sort of what is the overall purpose of the organization, right? How does what they do actually make a difference? And that's something we hear, that the younger generation really wants to know that their time is well spent, that they're contributing to something meaningful, right? So how do we tap into that in a manufacturing setting? Do you have a good illustration of that, Beau, in terms of a company you've worked with that has done that really well? Is there an example you can think of?
I have a couple of them.
Okay.
One of them is in the packaging industry. And so those of you guys who are familiar with paperboard packaging, right? Cardboard boxes, folded cartons, that sort of thing. Not many people know that, but that product is infinitely recyclable. So it doesn't matter how many times you take a box, use a box, put it back through the process, it becomes a new box. That is almost infinite. And it requires, don't quote me on the number, but it's like 40% less energy to recycle a piece of cardboard than it does to convert a tree into a piece of paperboard. So if there's some young people who are very, very green minded, the plastic industry is pretty hard on the environment. The little thin plastic stuff that is used in a lot of packaging is pretty hard. It's hard to recycle. It's expensive. It consumes a great deal of energy. So understanding some of those values of, hey, there's a lot of green-minded effort out there. The packaging industry in manufacturing is really, really good relative to some of the other packaging opportunities. So that's an example where we can kind of meet them where they are if that's one of their burning values. If, on the other hand, it's not so, maybe not a green movement, but just a general concern for the well-being of people, everything that we do, some degree or another, helps somebody else. Right. So I believe my purpose on this planet is to find out how to help people. So that's help people be successful, help people be less stressed, help people enjoy life more. And so as long as I think we're putting that out there of, hey, our widget helps people have more time with their family, or our widget helps people who can't maneuver right because maybe it's a device that helps people walk or whatever, but helping them see how the product is used in the marketplace and how it is generally serving a good purpose of helping someone who needs help. So a lot of that is kind of messaging and marketing. But again, back to the recruitment strategy, those kinds of things usually are missing in the job write-up. It's, hey, we need an assembler and we're building widgets. Here's the pay, here's the hours, here's the location. Let us know if you're interested. And there's an opportunity there to say, look, here's how we're serving society, or here's how we're serving our community, that can, again, connect some dots that aren't probably naturally connected.
Great. So really just helping them see that through the work that they're doing, they really can be helpful, to others, and really trying to help them kind of picture that, so that it's not just about, making a widget, so to speak, right? It's what is that widget actually accomplishing? How does it make life better for those? So that's great. You mentioned it's not about throwing a pizza party, right? That's and nothing against pizza. We all like pizza, I'm sure, or many of us do. But that's a lot easier. It's actually easier to throw the pizza party than what you're talking about. So I can see why folks might be more inclined to throw the pizza party, because you're talking about really investing in people, right? Getting to know them, getting to understand their concerns, what they value. But you also made the case that that by doing so, these companies can reduce turnover, which is very costly. And so that whole process of turnover and then having the recruit and then having to onboard and so forth. This is a better way. Can you provide an example of a company that 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 is really doing it right, that you're like, they're kind of model setting with respect to creating that workplace culture where people just really want to be a part of, and they're really doing kind of everything you said, like they're actually taking the time to really invest in their employees and make them feel like they're part of something bigger. Is there, yeah, go ahead.
No. Great question. And you're exactly right. It is a lot harder, right? It's not complicated work, but it's really, really hard work. So this is on the consulting side more than on the Swiftemp side, but again, the two bleed over generally because the work that we're doing on the consulting side influences how we approach our customers because we're learning on both sides. But the companies who are truly investing, and we generally start with something like, core values, or we like to call it target behaviors, right? I can value something and not do it versus the target behavior. So, as an example, I have a client in Tennessee that I've been working with for quite a while, and they have a book club, and they have these team meetings where it's not about the order or the ticked off customer or the broken supply chain. It's, guys, how is this workplace working? What are we doing to enhance the workplace? And so too many companies have core values and it's hanging on the wall somewhere and it says, here's our values, but they don't ever talk about them. As opposed to what I would call a good company that is invested in it, and they call them out, good and bad. Hey, Joy, I love the way you took ownership of that project. Ownership's one of our core values. I love the way you demonstrated that. Thank you for leading the way. And it starts making that conversation part of it. And so when people are hearing positive feedback, I can't see a show of hands, but raise your hand if you don't like a pat on the back. I've yet to meet that person. And so what we end up with too much is organizations where the culture is basically transactional. Hey, Beau, did you finish the report? Did you send the email? How's the project coming? And there's no emotional connection to what I'm doing with my life. I'm trading hours for dollars, and that it's just an exchange. And so companies who are willing to wade into that muddy, murky water, because it's messy, right? We've got to be willing to care about our people if we want them to care about what our mission is as an organization. And so there's lots of ways to do it. But for us, one of the starting points is almost always, hey, what do you value as an organization? And just a quick sidebar, this may be a hot take, but there's this movement in society where everybody gets to weigh in on every topic, about every opinion, about everything that's happening, and every opinion matters. And so we see companies tying themselves up in this pretzel, trying to accommodate every possible human being on the planet. And unfortunately, that sounds great. It's a great theory. 99% of the time, you're going to end up with a very broken culture because there is no culture. And so what we guide our customers to do is not to exclude anyone, right? There's no intentional exclusion, but to say, look, this is who we are. This is how we operate. We value ownership. We value sense of urgency. We value direct communication. We value whatever those things are, and then go find people who want to be a part of that. It doesn't matter where they come from, what they look like, or what they believe, other than recognize our culture is what you're going to fit into. We're not going to tie ourselves into a pretzel because you have some kind of certain thing. And again, that may be a hot take, but as an organization, as we go through this, again, as part of the generational transition, I believe, we have to say, here's who we are. And if you want to be a part of this, here's who we expect you to be. Do you want to be a part of it? If you don't, that's cool. High five, rock on, go live your life. If you do, this is who we need you to be to fit in here, and the culture gets stronger. So now we've got a group of kind of like-minded people. They may look different, they may sound different, different races, genres, religions, whatever. But at the end of the day, we have a set of core values that we really, really value. And when we do that, the culture gets really, really strong. And to quote one of my favorite quotes from Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Right. So I believe if you got a great culture, you could have a mediocre strategy and still kill it. If you got a crappy culture, you could have the best strategy in the world and it'll never work. So all of those things is the heavy lifting of building what we call a kick-ass culture. Excuse my language, but I actually wrote a book called Building a Kick-Ass Culture.
That's great. Well, it sounds like a book that would would be great to read. So I'm going to be looking that up. Bo, thank you for that. And again, all those just those little moments, right? Just recognizing people in the moment that saying, hey, that's one of our core values, and just want to let you know I saw that you did that. Thank you. And this, we have a comment here in the chat about how individuals want to, feel like they can be famous for what they're doing, and famous in this context is just having recognition, right? So individuals just want some recognition, and you mentioned the patches, and that's what this comment is speaking toward about the example of patches. And I'm thinking about the other thing about the generation that we're talking about is, in addition to what you were sharing about growing up in a gaming environment where within a couple hours, you're, king or queen of the world, so to speak. We also have seen that our younger generation is used to getting trophies for participation. They're used to getting trophies for, hey, you did a good job out there on the soccer field. We appreciate the work you did, or you showed the most improvement this year, so you're going to get trophies for that. Or, wow, you really were, the one who had the most assists this year. So you're going to get a trophy for the most assists, right? And so those of us who are parents who've had kids in soccer, any, basketball, you name it, we know what that's like. We've seen that. And so, it's very similar to the scouts giving out the passes for different, work that they achieve as well. And so that's just something that's tying into part of our human nature, right? We want to know that we're achieving something. So I don't know if it's necessarily something that the older generation didn't value as well. I just think we've done better at acknowledging that with the younger generation in different ways, right?
Right.
So this has been great. One last real quick question, because we are running out of time, and Bo, this is a conversation that I think could continue for hours and hours, and look forward to perhaps another opportunity to have another conversation with you. But for now, just given what you do, how and where do you find the talent that you find to connect with the employers that you serve? Like, where are your key areas that you're finding the folks that like the 40 folks that you have on site right now with different employers? Where are you finding those folks?
Yes.
And then who are you partnering with to find those folks?
So we have a pretty extensive set of tools that we use. A lot of it is traditional job posting. But when we post for a job, we're building a database, and our database now around Metro Atlanta primarily is probably north of 6,000 people. And so what we've done again is we will post for a welder as an example, and we may have, dozens of people apply for that, and they may or may not be the right fit for this job, but then they may be a fit for the next job. Because of the way that we engage with our customers and we're helping them improve their culture, we have a pretty strong word of mouth network. So, Joy started with Swiftemp, working at this employer. Hey, this is a good employer. They pay well. It's a good work environment. Joy's got friends. So Joy says, hey, Susie or Mark, hey, I'm over here. I know you've done this kind of work too. They're looking for more people. Would you want to help us? So Max, who is our sales leader for Swiftemp, often talks about, your reputation as a business will far precede you. So if people come in and the boss is a jerk, or the work conditions are unsafe, or it's dark, or you don't have the right tools, that word spreads very, very rapidly. And we've also found that the converse of that is true is, hey, this is a good work environment. It's clean, it's safe, it's well lit. So people are willing to bring their friends in when things are good, and they're willing to warn their friends off when it's bad. So our approach, again, is trying to find customers who embrace our methodology of understanding that culture trumps all. It's not about pay. It's not only about pay. Certainly pay is important, but it's not about all of the kind of ethereal, squishy ideas out there. But it's people want to work in a safe place. They want to work in a place with decent leadership where they feel like they're respected and valued. And too many organizations overlook that, or they don't recognize what that's doing to them or for them. It goes both ways.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. We're going to have to close the session. So let me go ahead and just close out with this. If you are not a part of Max yet, you're more than welcome to join us. Feel free to reach out to me at any time, and we can talk about that for 2024. We have several upcoming events with Max. Look for information on these events in your email. And then last but not least, again, just a thank you to our anchor investors. So we will be sharing Beau's presentation as well as his contact information in case you'd like to follow up with him afterwards. Beau, I'm on my read list for this year. I always get new books at Christmas time, so your book is going to be on my wish list this year. So thank you. Thank you for sharing, Beau. Really appreciate you, and look forward to staying in touch in the days ahead. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.